There we go.
Okay.
And Alice,
So
you can lead the group today.
who?
I don't know. Barry said he wasn't able to come today.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I did an outdoor most of the shows I do are outdoors. There aren't that many indoor shows that so, given the options, uh I mean, I'm fine with it, but the weather, of course, you never know. And so this show, it was Brookside and in Kansas City. And these it was overcast and cold, but I had a rental tent and the vinyl on those tents is very heavy. So at least it was warmer in the tent, but it was still a little uncomfortable. But anyway, as I was saying, I think that it really does affect people psychologically, um, how the weather is. And I think the sun is, um, it's kind of nice when that's out. I think it just makes people feel better. So, I'm not sure how others did at the show, but it definitely um, was busy, but not so great. And they do a great job. It's well organized, but you can't make people buy. And I ran into a lot of people trying things on, loving it, writing it down, what they want, what they're interested in, and then they say they'll be back, but a disproportionate amount of them actually did not come back. So, usually have more people come back than in this instance. So that was kind of a drag. But you never know how it comes back to you later, because I end up meeting people here at the local artist market also that have met me at shows. So, it's never a waste of time, but it's just disappointing.
Hey, Allison, I saw you
Mhm.
were answered somebody's questions about flying to shows with jewelry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's no one answer, but
Well, tell us how you do it.
so I happen to have these cases called dynamic displays, and they're they're like 18 by 18, and the legs close. And so I have a big suitcase, and I use this hard case for the legs that's like 36 by 6 by 3, so I could check it. And I fly Southwest Airlines, so you get 2 bags free, and then my work fits into a knapsack, which is really good because then I don't have to, it's nice to be kind of hands free and have your work on you, so you never have to put it down. So I take a carry on with my office supplies. This show I had to take lighting, so I had to take these LEDs and then these gooseneck lamps that I use in my carry on. So I didn't have much room for clothing, but I fit what I needed, and I was only gone 5 days. The nice thing about flying is that on Monday I was home before noon, so that was really great. Um, but it really, it took me a lot. So there's a lot of different ways that people can fly for shows. Some people ship everything. Others, I guess there's some guy on the East Coast that'll pick up your work and transport it. But for me, early on, I decided I knew I wanted to take my work, take everything in suitcases and check it. This way, I didn't have to rely on shipping not arriving or things like that. And so
Yeah,
once
you're just giving it over to the airlines who are notorious for things not arriving.
well, Southwest is pretty good, and I've been lucky, and if it's a direct flight, also, that is a better bet, I would say. Um, so it's I was thinking, is one better than the other, driving or flying? And I love driving because I can bring everything with me and all of that. But as I say, it was nice to be home by noon you know, so I get more studio time, and I'm doing an artist market this Saturday. So it was nice to be home on on Friday rather than driving 12 hours home. And 12 hours is not so bad. But anyway, so yeah, I check 2 bags, and then if Eric flies with me, we could check 4 bags. So that's for Chicago. That's what we're gonna do. And so I probably won't even have to bring like a big carry-on the plane, just my work, which fits under the seat. And that too is a direct flight. So it's other people rent, and I had to rent a tent. Now the tents that you rent often is one long piece of vinyl, so you can't just get out of the back of your tent. And I was putting my suitcases out the back, so I'd crawl under, or you could go to the end of the aisle and walk around. That was the other option. If it was really hot, the vinyl in those tents, you'd swelter, but actually it worked to my benefit because it was pretty cold at this show. But anyway, so there's certain things obviously I can't bring. So you rent a tent, and I borrowed chairs. I was staying with a friend, and then I borrowed my neighbor's ladders on both sides. They had ladders. So that was really nice. And then for the first time I used, instead of bringing poles, because you could bring poles that, like, I have pipe and drape, and so I have poles that are 2 and 3 inch increments, so I could bring poles for hanging my banner or whatever. But I ended up trying this new cable system. So it's airplane wire, and it rolls up into nothing. So this is the cable I have for my lights, and 2 different banners. It fits into this little bag. And let's see. It's not particularly thick. So this is it. And I just zip tie. I went through a lot of zip ties. In fact, I used all of my zip ties because I didn't know that the poles on the rental tents are so thick that one of my long zip ties couldn't fit around it, so I had to double them up. And of course, worst case scenario, there's always hardware stores and places. And so one side of my cable, this is fixed. So this is like an aluminum connector, and you just I crimped it down with hammers. So that's a fixed side. And then this is the adjustable side. And as you see, there's screws. I happen to have these. I didn't buy these recently. So this cable, depending on how I want to hang things, I have all this excess, because so I hung my lights at an angle, and so having the excess was not a burden. I could just tuck it in to the pole pocket, but it allowed me to adjust the lights. The wire for the lights needed to be really, really tight, and I made a track of 2 of these, and my lights were kind of in between, and this fell to the side when I zip tied it. So it worked out nicely. It was very stable, and it was all zip tied, and there was no issue with it falling down or anything like that. So I'm very happy with this because it is compact and light.
You could probably go with a lot lighter weight cable than that.
I wouldn't go thinner. This is not that thick. But I don't think I'd
Yeah,
go
it is.
thinner.
Huh?
I don't think I'd go any thinner than this for what I was hanging. I mean, I have cable that's about 1 millimeter wide, and that I use actually in my jewelry. But this is a little easier to handle. This is this is plastic coated, by the way. I got this so it doesn't ruin my banners. With the plastic, it's about 2.3 millimeters. And anyway, so I was happy with this. But having this adjustable connector was key. And so it just, because it was the first time I used it, just took a little time to kind of figure out how I was going to do everything. And so, yeah, I mean, I have no complaints about flying. I was even able to stuff some crackers in my jacket pocket. And because it was going to be cold, there was an extra sweater I wanted to bring. So I just put it over my shoulders and wore it on the plane because I had no room for that. I had to bring a rain jacket, which I was really glad. So, yeah, this is basically this suitcase, and then this hard case, which is opened right now, and that fits the legs and my track lights, some of my skirting, the suit. So I could fit more in the suitcase than I do. It's just that it's at 50.5 pounds, so I can't fit another thing. But I also took some of the foam out that I used to use. So I have shelves in my cases, and I couldn't take those because they're about a pound each. And what I used was foam core, which it worked pretty nicely, but I decided to keep my coffee on the floor. I was a little wary of that. But the foam core I took some of the foam out of the big suitcase and used the foam core shelves for padding for my acrylic that goes to the cases. And then I have a cooler that goes in flat. You could make it square by hooking it once it's out. And that I also used for padding. And I brought my coffee container, and I even used that space in the container for in my knapsack to bring some kiwi with me. So I, when I started thinking that way, I was thinking about all of these empty spaces that could be filled. And while with the checked bags considering weight, they don't seem to weigh your carry-on bag. So that was pretty heavy. And
Probably as long as you can lift it, they figure it's okay.
right. And it's awkward though, because you're in that little aisle, so it's hard to get the leverage to lift it up. But some people helped me. But
That's
yeah, I
what,
had in there.
that's what
Yeah.
flight attendants are for.
No, they don't help you
Not
with that.
anymore.
But the other passengers helped me. And it was heavy because I had my the lamps for my track lighting, and then these pegs that hold the acrylic for my cases. And the pegs, they're aluminum, but they're pretty heavy when they're all together because there's 16 of them. So and then some displays that are acrylic that are a little weighty. But yeah, no, it worked out. I was actually happy with how it worked. And when I fly in June and Eric comes with me, it'll be luxurious because I'll be able to bring more clothes. I mean, even in June, you don't know. It could be 90 degrees. It could be 55 degrees. And so you have to allow for both. So anyway, I think that when I fly in August for Art in the High Desert, I will maybe just buy I don't think I'll have electricity. I might buy like a cheap battery operated fan or something like that because I'll be in a rented tent. I'll be able to open it on two sides because we all get corners the way they set it up. But I can't drive to that show just because of the driving home, and I don't want to repeat last year, so I'm just gonna fly
Are you
and
doing
deal
St.
with it.
Louis after?
I am, but I had taken myself off the wait list for in the Pearl, no matter what, because I just I just didn't this year. I just didn't want that pressure of it's just that distance of and the other thing is yeah, I was just it was too much last year, everything. So anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna fly to Portland and then drive over to Bend. And flying to Redmond means like 10 hours of travel, where I could fly to Portland and it's a two and a half hour flight and then a 3 hour drive. And I'd rather just be in a car. But flying to Redmond means it was like a longer layover and you have to fly to Seattle. So I just try to keep it as simple as possible. And so, and I've got some friends I could visit in Portland, but this way, when I get home, I'll also have time now before St. Louis. And I was gone for a long time last summer. So anyway. And I also did, this time around, I did ship a box, just a large flat rate box. And if you use USPS online, it's called enhanced click and ship, then you get a discount on shipping. So it was $19 for large flat rate box. And my packaging for necklaces is just bulky. And so if I'm flying alone to a show, I need to be able to ship a box. And I stuck in pony clips and some other things that were heavy. And there's I think the weight limit on those flat rate boxes is like 70 pounds, and I didn't even come near it. So that was worthwhile also, just shipping the one box. I've shipped it home to myself too. And so what I did is when I first got to Kansas City, the next day I went to a post office, and I was staying with friends, so I was able to print out a label on Sunday night. And I'll have to figure out how I could print a label out in Bend.
You can
so I
print
could
it
ship a box.
You can print it before you go. It's still good.
I guess I have to see, you're right. Well, I have to see if I could put the date that I want to ship in. That's the whole thing with the post office. It's date specific.
Use pirate ship. It's cheaper than the post office.
Well, but I get this discount with the post office. I'll look into pirate ship
Pirate
and
ship
see.
gives you a discount on everything.
But the flat rate is a flat rate anyway.
No. Pirate ship's flat rate for a large box is like 17.
Okay, I paid 19 for the post office. Okay,
So
I'll sign up for pirate
that
ship.
was the last time I sent something that way.
Okay, how long ago was it? Like more than 6 months ago?
I don't remember, but it wouldn't hurt to check it in any case.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't hurt because the rates keep going up for the post office. But yeah, if I could schedule it ahead of time and get a label, that makes it a lot easier. And then I'll just bring a low roll of tape, packing tape, or buy one there if I have to. So, but anyway, if you're a ceramic artist, then it's really hard to fly because of your stock, obviously.
Or a photographer.
Right. I mean, your only option would be shipping.
Actually, jewelry is the only medium that can fly comfortably, easily.
Textile artists
Right.
can fly, and they could, depending on their setup, they could check their work in baggage or ship it, and of course it depends upon the whole setup, but I've known textile artists who could fly. And I don't know what's available to rent. I know you could rent a table and chairs, but maybe you could rent racks also. And if you're going to a city, then you can always go to like an IKEA or a Target to buy things, and then give them away afterwards. I know people who do Baltimore will buy their display things because the show rentals are so expensive. So a chair is like $95 to rent. So you could just, you could even have one shipped to you, or, buy a chair at Target. And that's what people have done. So I do love driving though. I mean, it's fun. I love, after the show is over and you're in the car, I love a long drive that day. And it's a great way to just kind of chill, listen to an audiobook, have good provisions.
Hi, Sharon.
So I'm gonna,
Hello.
I'll be curious to look at my expenses at the end of this year because I'm flying for more shows than I ordinarily have. and I'll just compare to last year. But I know, like, my flight to go to Kansas City is very equivalent to what I paid for gas.
Winners of awards. Some of his most notable distinctions include being selected in 1986 as a top USA artist to exhibit designs in International Show in Paris, France. Being accepted into the Smithsonian Arts and Crafts Exhibition held in Washington, D.C. in both 1997 and 2005, and his work was featured in the highly regarded Lapidary Journal.
Hey, Mark, can you kill the audio?
Although he backed
Yeah.
the accolades, he was
Trying. Sorry.
Well, that was interesting.
Now he's talking, now that he's muted.
But so anyway, I'll be curious about comparing my expenses. And of course, it's less time, out when you're flying, so there's less lodging and food. And I was saying my flight to Kansas City was very similar to the cost of gas round trip. I'm flying to Chicago, which is an 18-hour drive. And, it's a little more expensive, and there's two of us going too. But in Kansas City, I actually hired somebody to help me, and I won't have to do that in Chicago. Well, I would not have done it in Chicago. The reason I did it in I hear an echo in Kansas City is because the Saturday, the hours are long. So the Saturday is 10 to 9. But anyway, yes, you're right. I mean, a lot of people can't fly because of the work that they make. It's too bulky.
Larry, things are getting a little squirrely.
Yeah. Maybe it should be Squirrel Tuesday.
So I went to the art writer fair at Lyndhurst on Saturday, and it was very well attended. And they told me that Friday had been as well. I have no idea what happened on Sunday, but the weather wasn't going to be as good.
Do you think, did it look like people were buying?
It wasn't obvious to me that they were, but the friends I talked to had been happy so far.
Good.
So yeah,
great.
people were buying. The average quality of the show was not as high as it had been in the past. There were still very good people there, but there were some people there that I wouldn't expected to have seen before.
At the end, it says, if you have to send flowers, if flowers are preferred.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mark, why don't you mute yourself until you have something to say?
Okay.
Oh, here's Oscar. Sharon,
Oh, he's late.
Sharon, you said you had questions?
No, I just have one, which really doesn't necessarily have to do with festival artists specifically, but artists in general. We're doing some local work here in Southwest Florida, and my question is, what kinds of things can the local arts sector or organizations in your area do to better support artists? That's my question.
Give them.
I am wrapping up. Sharon, are you familiar with Artist Inc. that Chris Dahlquist in Kansas City is involved with? It is a fantastic program, and getting something like that for artists is huge.
And it's very business oriented. Wouldn't you say that, Court? Like it's
yes, it's
Yes.
very business oriented.
yeah.
Right.
And they give you certain resources.
Like what? I'm familiar with them. I haven't participated in that for a while, but, so like what do you think is really good resources for you specifically?
Well, for tonight, I get to do a 5-minute presentation about my work in front of the arts community in Wichita, Kansas. People I may never be able to get in front of, and they're all in one room. So
So you're
that,
doing that,
that's,
you're doing that in person, or you're doing that on a, Zoom or similar
no, in person,
in person?
at theater at the Wichita Art Museum.
And it's about what, an 8-week program that you're doing,
It's
correct?
an 8-week program. It's
Mhm.
one night a week for 8 weeks. And it is for artists of all disciplines. So we have
Right.
people with theater, music, writers.
Mhm.
Um,
They also have 1-day programs. They're doing outreach in other states, like New Mexico and in Kansas. I don't know, about 5 other states, and they have
Yeah.
like 1-day seminars and things like that.
some things you could do, grant writing workshops.
Specifically for artists that are about artist-oriented grants versus organizational grants, because they're not the
Right.
same.
Mhm.
Right. There
So
was some,
well,
there is a state arts commission in Kansas that has a program where artists can go out and teach and get paid to go out into do like little 1-day seminars and things in the communities. And they talked about that I don't think a lot of people were familiar with. I knew about it.
another type of oh, I'm sorry.
The it's creating connections between there's 3 independent arts organizations in Wichita, Kansas, which I kind of find amazing.
Yeah, in Wichita,
And yeah, this brought 2 of them together.
the organizations themselves.
Yes. It was at the city funded, called City Arts, and that's funded by the city of Wichita. There is another group called Harvester Arts, that was involved in, actually putting the class on. And then there is, the Koch family is headquartered in, and Koch Industries is headquartered in Wichita, and they have funded an art center as well. So we have all 3 of those in Wichita. So there's that. I just did presentations about 10 days ago to a group of show directors about emerging artist programs. And one of the interesting things that they told me is that they are looking for an emerging artist program specifically for established artists that have never done art shows.
As a new venue, right? As a way of another venue for your work. Is that what, I mean,
Yes.
orient to that, because you might be galleries or online or whatever you're doing now, but the
Right.
consideration of festivals as a viable venue.
Yes. And to get them up to speed, tell them, okay, here's what it's going to take, here's what it's like. So that was something we had never thought about when we started setting up the emerging artist programs. We hadn't even considered that, but there was a really strong interest in that.
Yeah, we have that particular thing as an item now. As well as the
I'd like,
grants. I'm sorry, Allison.
go ahead, finish what you're saying, and then I'll.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Also, I want to talk about working with cities regarding opportunities to sell. So, for example, here in a lot of towns around here, we have open studios. We have Santa Fe Open Studios. The organization that runs it is their own nonprofit organization, but they actually end up getting a grant from the city that they apply for each year. And other towns around here have things like that. I just learned, a friend of mine who's in San Francisco, during COVID, they started these little neighborhood artist markets. I think they're like 1-day sorts of things. And so it's an opportunity for artists to sell their work. And again, they're not run necessarily by the city, but the city works with them. So I do this local artist market, Santa Fe Artist Market, it's called, and it's a nonprofit also. But the land that we're on is owned by the city, and so again, it's working with the city to create opportunities for artists to sell.
And we've been also back to the other comment, the opportunity to sell, and what are the other things for which artists, this is going to sound terrible, don't take offense. Other opportunities for artists to generate revenue. So whether it's selling their work or whether they're inclined to want to teach workshops, or they're inclined to want to work for a company, not work for a company, but contract with a company to do some project where the thinking process is my belief is the thinking process that artists use is totally different than the thinking process that most businesses use. And so it's really valuable to have an artist lead various kinds of workshops and brainstormings and whatever, because artists bring a totally different mindset to that, and valuable, right? So, I believe strongly that an artist should never be allowed to, not be requested to do that for free.
Right.
I
You
think
should be paid for what you do. So that's my opinion.
I know,
something that lists every single available resource for artists in your area. And because there's artists that you get into doing what you're doing, whether it's galleries or art festivals, and you don't really think much outside the box. So something that tells that it doesn't have to go into grant writing, but says, okay, here are the state and local grants that are available to you. Here are arts organizations that you can partner with to maybe do an exhibition, or if you have a project you want to do, here are city, county, state arts organizations, regional arts organizations, just that whole list of resources and what's actually available to artists, because most artists, if they're lucky, they know about half of them.
You don't have time, right? I mean, it's like everybody doesn't have enough time to do everything. So some more is accumulating information. So when you talk about resources, does that also include things like what kinds of artists or insurance is available from who? Do you mean that kind of resources too, or do you mean more what you were saying, the organizations, grants availability, that sort of thing?
I'm talking about everything from, are there rental studios? Is there somebody that has an open ceramic studio or an open glass studio? I'm talking about any single resource that an artist might use.
Okay, cool.
Financial to space, are there artist cooperatives? Just everything you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, we have a couple of folks here are opening some shared space opportunities. One of the, I'm assuming you probably know who this is. Marcus Jensen lives here. He's an internationally famous painter, and he's extremely successful. And he lives here, so he's opening some cooperative studio space to allow other artists to have somewhere to work and have a lot of that. So just the fact that Marcus is starting it and providing some mentorship is a huge thing here.
Do you have mentoring program for emerging artists?
Not as a county type thing. Yeah, not as a county activity or, a broad activity. So that is definitely on our list on the emerging, not just real young emerging, but anybody who's looking for a venue, whether it's a festival or how do I do better in galleries or how do I sell my work better online or whatever, emerging in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But not the art part, right? That's not to us. That's to somebody else to teach, right? That's like the artistic part.
I know a woman who came out of improv and performing Music, who now does creativity workshops in Silicon Valley. And I know a woman who's built a consulting practice around drawing, illustrating, people sort of muddle through when she draws what they tell them, and sometimes it's very enlightening for them to see it as an image. So there's opportunities for people to do business related work with artistic skill. And I would think that there would be some companies that would be really interested in promoting that sort of thing, both internally within their own organization and to like a bank that's community oriented might find that very attractive.
Thank you.
Do you have any kind of regular like mixers for artists and art venues and things like that?
Currently not for artists. There is some for the organizations, but in a sense of what I would call choreographed networking, right? To get the right people there and then expand that. For artists, that is not happening much. Whatever they might do, they do, but not in a choreographed networking way.
Do you know any
That's
real
something
estate?
else you could offer.
Yeah.
Do you know any real estate owners that have empty buildings? Preferably in
We
strip.
might have a little here. Florida's pretty packed. So why do you ask that, Larry?
Well, no, I mean, the mall that's closest to my house is a dead mall. There's only about 3 or 4 stores left in it. But there's a beautiful, the camera club I belong to has a beautiful art gallery in the mall. And they're not paying rent.
Are they getting traffic?
They're open Friday nights and Saturday afternoons. They're getting a little traffic. But the space itself is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is just practicality. Where can you stay that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg? Can you take your family? Can it be a mini vacation? Is there some kind of coordination that could be done that says, okay, well, these people would be willing to host you. They're going to be out of town. Not actually a B&B,
Mm-hmm.
but something much less formal than that.
Hosts.
I've got to run, folks. I've got to
Okay,
get out
thank
of here
you.
earlier than usual tonight, but and I want to tell everybody thank you. The running through my little presentation last week was a huge help to get it started. So thanks, everyone.
I'm sorry I missed it.
it's on YouTube.
Oh,
We'll see everybody later. Bye.
Bye.
bye. Good luck.
Thanks, Larry.
All right.
Was
Alice,
this helpful, Sharon?
Yes, it was. Thank you. Some things are already going along that list, but it's really helpful to hear it from more artists. We're about to have a larger artist input session here. Like I said, it's not festival artist specific, it's artists. It's not, and it's artists, not just visual, right? Because there's other kinds. Who knew, right? Performers and musicians and all those people. So it's for everybody. Everybody has different needs.
If there are performers who are trying to start their own performing opportunities, collaborating with artists on sets and things visual artists on sets and things could be a win-win also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we some people have said we should have these input sessions separately, visuals together, performers together, and all that. One can certainly make an argument for that because you have more in common. On the other hand, you can make an argument that goes along your line, right? Just because I'm a performing artist doesn't mean I don't have anything in common with a visual artist. Or maybe there's a collaborative activity. So we may do both of those
You know,
styles.
Diaghilev used emerging artists for his sets and costumes, and some
Who
great
has?
careers came out of that. Diaghilev, the Russian impresario of ballet at the beginning of the 20th century, who I think Nijinsky worked in his troupe, and I think Picasso did scenery for them.
Wow, right?
Before Picasso was,
Before he was who he is, right?
well, he was established already. He was a name artist, but he wasn't a demigod yet.
Yeah, right, right.
Mhm.
What a great opportunity for the people who he did that for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everybody won because people would go because Picasso did the sets. He was famous enough
Right.
to attract the
Right.
audience. So
Cool. That's all I wanted to ask.
There seem to be a lot of art centers around the state of Florida, actually. And I know because I've taught at a few of them, and they have a lot of different mediums, and some of them have space that, whether it's clay or jewelry, and you could go in, you know, and pay to use the studio, so you don't have to have your own, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And
One of the things that I
Yeah.
see missing in these here, we have a lot of that here, right? One of the things appears to me to be missing that would be helpful, but maybe not, is the not a studio for your work, a studio that has all of the software and other tools you might want to carry something out that maybe you don't have yet. That it would
Mhm.
be open space and probably free, so that you can stop by and create something that you don't own the software to do, or, you know, maybe you use Canva, but you
Right.
don't use Photoshop, but you really don't want to have to buy it, right? I mean, like,
right,
just as an easy
right.
example. So
in
there's
Johnson,
some
don't
discussion
know-
about that.
I don't know
in
if
the-
go ahead. Sorry, you're gonna say what I'm thinking.
sorry, Allison, in the Johnson County, Kansas library system, and my sister used to live there till recently. They have a maker's room with 3D printers and machine tools, and they're open. It's not a huge space, and it's not open all the time, but it's open to all the residents with the library card, basically. And
Oh,
so
that's
that's something along the lines of what you were suggesting, Sharon. And I could
Right.
see
In Johnson
that-
County, you said?
Johnson County,
Mhm.
which is Overland Park. It's near
Right.
Kansas City.
Kansas
Yeah, I
City.
used to travel there.
Yeah, so beautiful library system, and really interesting idea that they would offer that,
Mhm.
and really, I think, a very valuable one. So I could see, you know, an entrepreneur just opening up a studio like that
Mhm.
and charging fees and building connections with artists that they could then promote in some way, shape, or form.
And I think that with that could be some amount yet to be determined of training time, you know, where if you have need for a 3D printer, for example, or you think you
Mhm.
do, maybe you need a little bit of, wait, how do I do this? And what else could I do? And that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Just to
We have
expedite what you're doing.
Yeah, we have a maker space here, and they have everything from laser cutters to CNC equipment, and they have little, you know, workshops where you pay. So you pay to become a member. There's like a monthly membership fee, and then you would pay to get this training, and, you know, however many hours is required before you could even use the equipment, which
Mhm.
totally makes sense for so many reasons. But what I was wondering, Frank, you might know this, regarding using Photoshop, is there any requirement from Photoshop, like as far as how many people are allowed to use it license wise? Are there any licensing issues
Well,
with computers?
They must have commercial licenses, but you can
Mhm.
only put it, if the regular normal license is 2 computers. And you
But
could
if, you
use
know,
it on
if-
more, but you have to deactivate it before you activate it on a different computer.
But if you have a single computer, that computer could run 12 hours a day with different people every 2 hours. And I think that would not violate the license. Since it's computer specific. So a library or a makerspace can do that. Also, I think in Johnson County, they did have people who could do simple training on the laser printers, the 3D printers, so that if you went and you wanted to do something, there would be the equivalent of a librarian in the room who could show you the basics. You wouldn't get advanced training for free, but you know, this is how you set it up. This is how you plug it in. This is how you load the software. This is how you load whatever it is you want in there to build it. So the basics were covered. There was some amount of training associated.
Well, you need the same person showing people how to use Photoshop too, because Photoshop is really complicated.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we had some discussion, I had some discussion with a performing artist who's also a good friend of mine, a great actor. And she was talking about how for them, they have to do audition tapes, right? Because that's how they apply for positions, roles. And they need a good studio that has all the right kind of mics, right kind of light, all that sort of thing. So they can just walk in and there's someone there to make sure they're set up right and do their audition tape, take the recording. Because to set up a audition video room of your own is a pricey activity. So they would like a place where they can just walk in and do that. Same for musicians, they need to make audition tapes. So
I'm actually reminded of, there are kitchen spaces where
there are what?
you know,
Oh, kitchens, yeah.
kitchen type spaces
Mhm.
where they're you know, license, whatever, you know, hygienic licensing there is and everything, and you can rent the kitchen space. And I know we've got one here. In this way, you don't have to invest in all that equipment because
Right.
that's a huge undertaking. So that, yeah, I
Same
mean,
concept, right? We have those here, and then the people who use those, who make great muffins or pies or catering or whatever they do, then they're able to sell those because they've been made in a licensed kitchen, which
Exactly.
Right.
I guess you can try to sell them out of your home kitchen, but if you get caught, that's a real problem with the health department.
I think that's state specific because California allows certain foods to be sold that are homemade.
Yeah, that might be state specific, right? I mean, California and Florida's laws would be very different.
There
Yeah.
was a change in the law in either New York or New Jersey in the last couple of years to make it easier for home cooks to sell stuff at a flea market or a farmer's market.
Farmer's market. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know
so
the law is
the
in
rules
Florida.
are a little less stringent than they used to be, but if, you know, it depends in part on the quantities you're making.
Mhm.
And of course, at some point you outgrow a home kitchen anyway, so,
Right, you need a commercial kitchen.
but a shared commercial kitchens makes a lot of sense, and I know that it's done.
Mhm. And so similar ideas for artists, you know, if you need
Right,
video space or podcast space, or do you need photography space? You know, particularly for emerging artists or those of you who are not as adept at photography, whether you're applying for an art festival or a gallery or PR or whatever you're doing, is there a space where the photography is set to go, right? The lights are up and the right cameras are there and there's someone there who's like, okay, this will pass Larry if you send the pictures to him, right? Sorry, Larry, I have to jab you too. Cool. Very helpful, thank you.
One art group here, they found, for some reason, they were able to find a house that was going to get torn down to make way for building something else. But there was a period of time where it was just sitting, and they rented it for about a week, and they set up the whole house as an art gallery,
A pop-up kind of thing, right? A great big pop-up.
including the yard. But, you know, it was just, hey, this is the only time we're gonna be here, get it now. And the people were glad to, get some income out of, renting this space before they started their construction project. Which would be
That
something
reminds
like
me,
the fall thing.
that reminds me of, in Berkeley, I remember some store windows, like empty shops. The windows, they would allow like artists to set up exhibits in windows so people walking by could see them. I don't know if there were fees involved or anything like that.
And we had some of that here when our downtown was being imagined, and now we have no space. But we did that. We have no space, but it was a cool thing at the time.
The Indian casinos also have, but they have outlet stores, whatever. But every once in a while, one will be empty, and they'll offer it to a non-profit to put in some sort of arts exhibit.
Mhm.
I don't know, their laws are different because they're, I guess as long as they
Sovereign.
don't blow anything up, they can do anything they want, but
There's so much empty retail space around me
yeah,
that
here too.
there ought to be creative ways to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it just takes an organization or a group to actually do that, right? That's the part of what I find is that like you don't have enough hours in the day, the existing arts organizations don't have enough hours in the day. And so how did those great things happen, right? I mean, it's just that's the. So
Well,
there's
our
some of us in
main-
town who are semi-retired now from what we used to do and are trying to help move some of that along.
Our mayor-
GoFundMe campaigns might be available, it might be possible to
Mhm.
raise some money so some people could be paid to work on that sort of
Right.
stuff.
Mhm. I didn't want to dominate your discussion group, Larry, but that was all.
Oh, no, that's all right.
That was all.
It's
very-
interesting.
Yeah, we
Sharon,
probably
this
won't
is
have
one of the more
anything else.
interesting conversations we've had in the last month or two.
Thank you.
The same people keep showing up and we rehash a lot of the same stuff. So a new question and a new idea is appreciated, actually.
I'll try to come by off and on. Next time I have a follow-up question.
So I am doing work with an arts organization right now, and it has been suggested to me that there are lots of organizations where membership and retention of members is an issue, and tech stacks are an issue, and I'm looking to find people to talk to about that. So if you can think of someone that could give me 20 minutes it'd be valuable to me.
You said falling off membership, and what was the second thing? It didn't come through on my.
Tech stacks. There are issues, right? If you've got the right technology, it's much easier than if you don't. And simple technology is easier than hard technology. And so I'm helping people with CRM programs and funnels, and as well as websites.
I assume that might be in in how to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well,
because there's organizations that know a lot about how to do that because they have more pressing need for it. And do they teach that, so to speak, to both smaller organizations and to individuals?
Yeah. So I'm just exploring what's out there, what the needs are, and what the perceived needs are. We're trying to necessarily what the real needs are.
Right. So you're located where?
I'm
Not
in.
that it matters for resources, but
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey. I'm about 20 miles from the George Washington Bridge. But I've worked with Canadians and Californians and a lady in England, and
right.
so
Doesn't matter anymore for that
this
stuff.
magic box is, we take it for granted, but it's amazing.
Mhm.
So I Zoom with people 1,000 miles away and teach them how to build a website in Squarespace.
Yeah, right. Amazing what's happened with that.
Yeah.
It's the good news part of COVID.
Mhm.
Right. I've taught workshops to people around the world also because it's online. I mean, Australia, basically countries where people speak English.
Mhm.
England, Germany.
Came back
but
from Japan.
She
That
said,
would be
well, if somebody
nice.
speaks English, they could take the class. So it is amazing. I also find that, I mean, my customers anyway they're buying more online than before COVID. Like, so it kind of trained people to be more comfortable buying things online. So it used to be I might make one online sale a year, and now it's, just pops up in my email here and there. It's random. But that's kind of nice too.
Is that because
Usually,
do you use the leads from shows and then work them to increase your onlines?
yeah, I mean, they're definitely, I would say 99% of the time, there's somebody who has already met me. And so, I send out an email once a month, but it could be somebody who bought from me 5 years ago and, and like in person, and now they're buying something online, or, so yes. Which is why I remind myself, if a show is not great, but I've collected names, it could still pan out.
Right, it all depends on your
some-
definition of success, right? Because maybe the success is not as it was in the past where it's only the show sale. Maybe it's also the database and the connection and other things, and which didn't used to be the case as much as it is today.
Right.
I have a
Right.
client who's a furniture maker and he does a couple shows a year, and he's very happy if he sells something at the show, but he's almost as happy if he gets a commission a month later,
Mhm, mhm.
which
Sure.
happens, that he
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
do the show for the sales at the show. He does the show for the sales at the show and follow-up sales that organically flow from it.
Yeah, I've known that of lots of artists I've known over the years, that post-sale show that post-show sale is maybe bigger. There may be more volume off of that from the show.
Mhm.
And then how well they work their databases. So not enough hours in a day.
No.
I just sent out I input my emails, and I send a thank you out for visiting my booth at the show, and I offer free shipping because I can, and this way, when they get my next email, hopefully they'll have remembered that they signed my email list, and then
Mhm.
won't unsubscribe.
Do you have a picture of a work of jewelry in every one of those emails?
Oh, so I have jewelry, and I also have a picture of me in my booth at the show.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a couple of pictures of jewelry with links. But in every email I do that. And when I send out my regular emails to customers, sometimes I make a sale. But again, it's like I don't know what I'm putting out there. Because the first quarter of the year, just not in response to a specific email, I made a couple of online sales, but they weren't in conjunction, like right after. So it's I don't fully.
There was a famous saying by a man who owned a department store in Philadelphia. He says, "Half of the money I spent on advertising is wasted. Unfortunately, I don't know which half."
Oh.
So
Well,
maybe that's a resource in this discussion of what kinds of resources is how to track that, how to effectively know that, how to work a sales funnel well. I mean that
Mhm.
because there's a lot to that.
A workshop on that could be very valuable to a lot of people, I think.
Mhm.
I would be more than happy to do a webinar where I critique websites, and everybody who wants to spends 10 minutes with their site on the screen, and we could do 90 minutes and do 9 of them.
Mhm.
I've done that once, and I had the impression that, well, I know a lot of people thought it was valuable because some of them hired me.
You can see, I
Right.
mean, I can see anyway, from having done work with juries for so long, the difference in images coming up today, or last several years actually, compared to before that. I mean, the difference in booth shots and good quality imagery is amazing to me after there started being discussion about it. And you could really see it, particularly booth shots. And you can pretend, you
But
can really see it in a newer artist. It's like, oh dear, I'm not sure where to start to talk to you about what you need to do, right? But that's because they're new, they don't know. So
But apparently people are still leaving their name in their booth shot.
apparently,
And I've also heard, and Bonnie was talking about this, jewelry booth shots with no jewelry in the cases.
oh, really? Well, you would think, right?
Yeah.
But more than not, the improvement has been dramatic, I think, from the things I see
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah. So I hear that snail mail is in again. I've always sent out a postcard, and it's gotten really expensive, because the stamps keep going up, but I still think it's worth it. But apparently it's in.
Mhm.
I hear people talking about it. And
Now it's exotic, so you get so much
right.
less junk mail that you actually are more likely to look at it, especially if it's well crafted. So
Yeah.
there's every Thursday there's an marketers book club I attend, and then there's an audio, little film summary of a book, and then everybody talks about it. And there's this one man who's been a direct mail marketer his entire life, and he's 70-ish, somewhere between 70 and 80, I would guess. And
Mhm.
he's an ad he's a promoter of snail mail as a still viable, underappreciated tool.
Right.
And there are a couple other people in the room who completely agree with him. So
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I send a postcard with a picture of my jewelry, and it goes to people's homes to 1,600. And you can't. So it's very hard to track how people find you, because a lot of times they just don't remember. But sometimes I'll see at a show they have the postcard and said, "Oh, I got your postcard," and so. But again, it might not be like right at that show if they buy something. I mean, it might be. I mean, I've been doing this now for 29 years, so it's amazing. Like, some people go dormant, and then they emerge again. And I mean, you just never know. So it's important to put a lot of things out there.
yeah,
I mean, there are some people who successfully do online only businesses, and that's great. But I think it might depend on a lot of things, a lot of variables. But with like Instagram, for example, that's very hard to track unless you're saying, if you come to the show, I'll enter you in this or give you 10% off or whatever the case. But otherwise, it's really, I have no idea. I've never made a sale directly from Instagram, but people come to shows and say, and at this show I was just at, this woman said, "Oh, that's right, you posted this new bracelet. And I'd love to try it on," because I said, come try on this bracelet. And she did. She didn't buy it, but but I know she saw it on Instagram. And but generally it's really hard to track those things.
well, I have a couple ex-clients who said that Instagram was really, really helpful. One of them was a jeweler.
Uh-huh.
So she said she got much more traction from posting on Instagram than from her website.
What
Uh-huh.
about offering a $5 discount if you print out? the ad and bring it in.
Well, that would be, or whatever the case is, that would be a one way to track it.
Mm-hmm. Thing is, even if you can track it, it's going to fluctuate violently, and you
Yeah.
could spend more energy on tracking it than it's worth. I mean,
You're right.
if you don't know until you try, but
Right.
um,
And I don't know that if it matters to track it or not, in the first place.
well, you know, if you're spending money on 1,600 postcards,
Mhm.
that's a meaningful expenditure. If that's not generating an adequate return, maybe you shouldn't. But
Right.
you can't tell, you know, there's how much the investment in email marketing and the investment in Instagram, the investment in other social media is time, not
Mhm. Right.
cash.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Yeah,
it could be cash too, because I do see a lot of posts where the posts are organic and the distribution of those may vary tremendously when they're delivered versus the small amount of money it takes to put money behind it, like paid Facebook, paid Instagram.
true,
It's
absolutely.
not a lot, right? And it's somewhat trackable, but it's also, you don't know. Think about our own purchases. You know, do I know what exactly inspired me about going to a restaurant? For example, did I get a postcard? Did I see a post? Did a friend tell me, I mean, how many of those things does it take before I say, oh, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to go check out some new shop, or
That's
Yeah.
right.
you don't know for sure. And so and people ask me,
Right.
well, how'd you hear about us? I don't know. I saw it everywhere. I don't know. You
Yeah.
know?
I once did something original. I scanned in a $5 bill and I put the picture on my website with a counter where the serial number was, and offered the discount if they brought it to the show. And I knew, because there was a counter,
Mm.
I could tell how many were actually looking at that page.
Versus a copy, right?
Right.
Well, postcard stamps have gone up so much. And I mean, I think it's still a good deal, but I mean, I really only have to sell like one, well, depending on the price point, one or two pieces to cover it. But
Yeah, the price point of the product is a major factor in what's a good investment in marketing money.
mhm. The other thing is I find that you know, I do all these shows across the country, and I send it to my entire mailing list because I've met people in Denver from Chicago, or I mean, they get around, they travel, and you just never know where they're going to be. So I don't want to limit it to just people in that particular region. I mean, that seemed to the demographic that I sell to seems to travel, and so it's not unusual to meet clients in different places.
Is there a way to get a bulk rate on mailing postcards?
I think it's much more than what I do. A friend of mine used to do this, I forgot what it was called, and they just put your postcard through a machine, I think, and it prints it. But I think it's more than what I do.
You have to separate them out by zip codes.
Mm.
So unless you have a lot in each zip code, it's not worth it. If she's all across the country, it's not gonna do much.
Right.
You know, because our temple used to send out, you know, printed newsletters, and those were by zip code.
Uh-huh.
to get the bulk rate.
Right.
But, if you were, I don't know, somehow you're in one place that has several zip codes associated with it, you could send it just to them by some sort of bulk mailing.
Right. I'd say California is still the highest since I was there for so long. But anyway, I'm going to be doing that soon. I have all my stamps. I'm just waiting for my postcards to arrive. And then I try to go through and, write a little note. I can't do it for 1,600. It's just not realistic. But, I'll look through, and if I recognize a name, I might just write a little note. And I find that that help. Like, people have said to me at shows, "Oh, you have some earrings that I might be interested in, that you wrote a note on the card." So
I think these days, time anybody actually takes the trouble to personalize anything is going to get extra attention and appreciation.
It has more value.
Yeah. I mean,
I also send out I don't have that many to send out, so it's okay, but I send out thank you cards. And so I have like my stationery, and I put it in an envelope, and I don't make a sales pitch or anything. I just thank them for what they bought, and visiting me at the show. And because whenever I see, well, I don't know if this helps or not, but it's nice to get a handwritten note in the mail, I
very-
think. But when I see somebody at a show and I look at their earrings and I know the artist, 9 times out of 10, they don't remember who the artist is at all, but they love when you recognize it, but they forget who we are.
That's why it's
So
a
I
good
just
idea
like
that you
to-
said you had your picture on in your emails, and also the people in your booth. So that people can put that together, right? Oh, I have no idea what her name is, but I remember
Right.
this booth, and then you going on with who you are, or whatever it's in your email address. So, but to think
Right.
that they would remember your name unless the purchase was really pricey or they're a collector of it is hard to, Do you know Harry Roa? Did you?
Yes,
Roa?
yes. Yeah, I know his work, really beautiful work.
Yeah, beautiful, right? He and his wife Lily have a promotional machine for working
Oh,
the lists. He is I've spent a lot of time with them about that and how they do that. They're just up in Sarasota, up the road from Fort Myers. So
uh-huh,
it's a machine of the
uh-huh,
sales funnel, and Lily does that, not
Right.
Harry. I mean, Harry does the jewelry
right.
and exercise.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work, but
Yeah, that's
it-
Lily's
it-
part of the business.
but
Allison,
also,
when you're doing the emailing and the hand notes, do you ever talk about if there's a problem and they need a repair, they should feel free to get back in touch with you?
I have mentioned things like that completely. And by the way, if anyone calls me and you could hear in their voice, like the first thing I say is, whatever it is, I can fix it. I figure in my own mind, the worst case scenario is I have to remake it. But I'm very good on that end of it for sure.
Well, because I mean, that would put you higher in top of mind.
Mhm.
Okay,
That would be
that's
a
good
reason,
to
that'd
know.
be a reason to keep the note, a reason to keep the, be a reason to keep the note that, oh, in case something goes wrong, I should keep this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't mention it often, but that's something to mention for sure. I know when like if somebody loses an earring, they're always so thrilled that I could make something for them. In fact, I have somebody, an old customer of mine, sending me something because she lost one of her earrings, and anyway, so but yeah, you're right, that's important too.
I mean, we're just brainstorming marketing ideas and.
Yeah. I mean, so this generic world we live in, I feel like as artists, one of the things that we could use to compete with is, being personal. being
Mhm.
personal, having integrity, taking care of things when they break or whatever the case may be. And so like in my emails that I send to customers, I don't just say I'll be at this show. I might talk about a project that I'm working on, but I might even show pictures of the blooming flowers on my plum tree. I vary it depending on, you know, what strikes me at the time, but I try to make it personal.
I think that goes along to the reason that artists give, or that, I'm sorry, attendees give, at least what I hear, is that one of their greatest reasons for buying at a festival rather than a gallery, or even online, is they get to talk to you. Right, there's actually a real live artist here, right? I mean, it's not,
Right.
right? So, and so it's personal. So
Mhm.
playing on that, I mean, not in a negative way, but keeping
Right.
up with that this is personal, right? I have a
Yeah.
relationship with you, and every time I wear my earrings or necklace or whatever, I think about you. Or look at what's
Yeah.
on my wall. I mean, I'm that way. Most of the artwork in my house is festival artists from all over the country. So I
Yeah.
always think about, oh, I bought this at Cherry Creek, or I bought this in St. Louis, or I bought this. I have a couple of pieces from Art Fest, but oh yeah, I remember that. It was so great. I got to talk to whoever it was. I mean, I know who they
Mhm.
are, but that's a much better connection with some of the older artwork we have
Mhm.
that was just from a neutral source. So it's either from
But
art festival artists or it's from foreign
Mhm.
countries.
I do hope a gallery owner does have those connections with their customers, though, you know, ideally.
Depends on the gallery, right?
Right. Yeah. I remember the very first gallery I was in, the owner, she would, like, I'd bring her jewelry and I'd hear her on the phone and she would be talking to a customer saying, oh yes, I got that in, come and look at it. She let customers bring things home with them too. I mean, it was like a very personal relationship, very old school.
Yeah.
Oscar, what are you up to?
Trying to get myself back in one piece. I just finished a job and I threw up as soon as I found out of the walk out of the building.
You what?
So I threw up when I was out of the building. I don't know if it's I'm just tired from the trip or what
I'm
the
so
hell's
sorry.
going on. Why it's something bad. But
You have
other
any
than that,
you have any ginger tea that would soothe?
I'm going to do something. I was thinking asking the client a soda, but I don't like to ask people for anything when I'm doing a job for them. So, but the entrance to the building has a lot of vomit.
Oh,
That's a good way to end the meeting.
yeah, really. Nice talking to you.
I hope you feel better, Oscar. So
Feeling
long,
much
everybody.
better. As soon as I vomit, I was feeling better.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. So long.
Carnival was good. Bye.
So I guess that's
So
it.
how you-
Unless anybody wants to say something? Oscar?
No, I just finished Cottonwood and I'm getting ready to go to South Carolina now, and hopefully the weather start helping, because every single show that I've done this year is being postponed or affecting the crowd. Actually, the only good show, Sharon, was Fort Myers.
I heard you had a good show.
Yeah, that was the only show that I did really good. And everything else was the rain just killed the shows. And this Texas thing just did the same thing. So hopefully it's just the weather and nothing else, because I keep hearing people being a little bit negative about things, but we'll see what happens. So hopefully next weekend I can come out and say the things I just exaggerated. Nothing bad has happened. Everything is going great.
Yeah.
But other
The
than
thing
that,
is, we can't control the weather.
nope.
How's the weather in Chicago?
It rained a little bit for the second time today, but the sun is out now,
Mhm. Is it mild?
and it's 60 degrees. It's 60
Oh,
degrees, 64,
that's nice.
65. Assuming that
We're
that would
having
let me have.
we're having crazy winds here.
It's been, the weather's just being naughty, you know. And yesterday they told me that I was ahead of the storm all the way through, the storm that Court was talking about on yesterday in Facebook. I
Uh-huh.
never saw it. I was sunny all the way down to my house from, I was in
Good.
Oklahoma. I left. So who knows? Well, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we will see what happens. Because I got a lot of shows and a lot of bills to pay.
Yep.
Hey, Oscar, did you see Nikon discontinued the D850? It's down to 2200 now.
Wow.
Yeah, so I saw that, but I got bills to pay and still a pile of shows to pay. And I mean, a pile of shows to pay. Like I just saw
That's
the bill in
interesting.
SAP, I added up and came out to almost $4,000. So
That's interesting that they lowered the price
it's
instead
Nikon
of
is
raising it.
no, Nikon is say last year that they're going to put other new investment in the mirrorless system. So they was
Uh-huh.
discontinuing the regular SLR.
Right. That Eric
So
bought one, the new one, and it was on
mhm.
sale. It wasn't $2,200, but
No, 2500.
yeah. And he loves it. He loves his whole system, the new lighting, and you know, his equipment was like 30 years old, and we were afraid that his other Nikon, which it's got to be 15 years old or 20, maybe 15. We were afraid, well, if that dies, and then the mirrorless cameras are so expensive. So so he decided to buy the D, whatever it is, the
D8,
new one, the one that's discontinued.
yeah, the
And
D850.
The 850.
right,
You
because
know,
you know,
I've
we
been looking on all the forums and I still haven't figured out how to use the mirrorless with strobes.
ah
And I mean, I have settings written down that somebody said they used, and somebody else said that doesn't work.
oh
So the
I
next time
used
I set up, I'm going to try it.
I help a friend with the C9 and he had the C9 and that's what I was asking you, the strobe adapter for
For the hot,
the Spiratron.
yeah.
No hot shoe, it's electronic strobe, so it works fine with that. But you have to, if I find a picture, I text it to you.
Well, it's the question is the mirrorless cameras, when you look through the viewfinder, it's showing you exactly what the camera is seeing, the exposure and everything. But if you're going to shoot with strobes, you're stopping the lens down, it's going to look dark in the viewfinder.
Oh yeah.
oh
And that's, I want to know what setting to not have it look, to have it look like a regular DSLR when you through the viewfinder.
Can you, are you putting in live view? I know it's live view and then
Well,
there's
it's
another
live
mode.
view all the time. You need to turn off live view.
Next week I'm going to see my friend, so I
Yeah,
will play
ask
with
him.
his camera and I'll
Ask
ask.
him.
Well, basically, I'm teaching him how to use the camera.
Okay.
So I will try to figure that one out, but I need to see I don't, I don't like the C9 because it's really, really heavy.
It is, but
It's-
that's because the
It's really,
batteries.
it's really, really heavy. And to carry that around, taking pictures,
No, that's why everybody bought the Z8.
yeah, I think that if I go mirrorless, it will be the C8. And
And
that's
those
one of the
are
reason why.
running like what, upward of $4,000?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's on sale right now.
the C9 is
600,
For what?
36 or 35.
Got it.
pocket change. It's pocket change for you, Allison. No,
No.
no money.
Bye, Sharon.
Hi, thank you all.
Bye.
Mhm. Thank you. But that's, people who don't want to pay for photography, it's like, well, then you go to buy all the equipment. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. And the things like you can do so much with the new iPhones that that the thing that I don't like about the iPhone is that if you keep it small, it's fine. But as soon as you start printing 30 inches wide, it start looking junk.
It doesn't have the depth
know.
of field though either. I mean,
Well, that's because it's shooting everything wide open
Mhm.
there you go.
because it's favoring shutter speed so that there's no camera movement.
Ah, okay.
You have to
Right.
install a camera app that enables you to control the aperture and the shutter speed.
Ah, okay. I mean, they're pretty great, I mean, the whole, the iPhone, everything it can do. And it's also, if you're reading a book, it's a good paperweight.
All right.
Oh,
Thank
my
you, Larry.
goodness.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, bye
See you
guys.
guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.